Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. This game is an absolute adrenaline rush. It's like being dropped into the middle of a heavy metal album cover with you as the star, decked out in your giant ultramarine power armor, and ready to take on hordes of alien nightmares. If you're into games that let you turn off your brain and just revel in non-stop chaos, this is one you're not going to be able to put down. You play as Lieutenant Titus, back again to save the galaxy, or at least what's left of it. This time, the Tyranids are the enemy, and man, they do not hold back. These bug-like aliens swarm you in waves, and it feels like you're constantly teetering on the edge of survival. But instead of fear, the game fills you with this overwhelming sense of power. You're not just fighting, you're dominating, and it's glorious. The combat is where this game absolutely nails it. It's this perfect mix of ranged and melee action. 1 second you're blasting away with your bolter, and the next you're up close, ripping through enemies with a chainsword like some kind of sci-fi barbarian. And the transitions, smooth as butter. It's the kind of combat that makes you want to keep playing just to see how ridiculous and satisfying the next fight will be. The world is peak Warhammer 40k, Gothic architecture looms everywhere, the skies are dark and ominous, and everything feels so massive and heavy, like the weight of the universe is pressing down on you. The Tyranids, on the other hand, are the perfect contrast, grows fast and unrelenting, and the sound design, when that bolter fires or your chainsword revs up, it's like music to your ears if your music taste leans toward explosions and destruction. What really gets you hooked, though, is the scale. The battles aren't just big, they're overwhelming in the best way. You're constantly facing impossible odds, but the game gives you all the tools to tear through them like the walking tank you are. Add in the variety of weapons, abilities, and upgrades, and there's always something new to experiment with. If I had to nitpick, it might be that the intensity never really lets up, which can be a lot to handle if you're not in the mood for full throttle action. But honestly, that's also what makes it so addictive. It's pure, unapologetic mayhem, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 isn't just a game, it's an experience. It makes you feel like an unstoppable force, tearing through the universe one battle at a time. If you're into chaotic, high-energy action that doesn't take its foot off the gas, this is a ride you won't want to get off. Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor ReFantazio feels like stepping into a dream full of wonder, danger, and creativity that refuses to play by the usual rules of fantasy RPGs. From the developers of Persona, this game takes everything they're known for, deep storytelling, stylish presentation, and engaging systems, and reimagines it in a completely original setting. The world of Metaphor ReFantazio is breathtaking and surreal, blending classic fantasy elements with a unique otherworldly vibe. It's not just knights and dragons, it's castles floating on clouds, intricate machinery powered by magic, and cities that feel alive in ways you don't typically see in the genre. Every location feels handcrafted, inviting you to stop and take in the details even when the story pushes you forward. Speaking of the story, it's not afraid to get deep. It's the kind of narrative that keeps you thinking about its characters and themes long after you turn off the console. You'll be leading a group of characters who each have their own goals, flaws, and secrets, and the game does a fantastic job of weaving their personal arcs into the larger world-changing plot. The combat system is where Metaphor really shines. It's turn-based but feels dynamic with a lot of emphasis on strategy and creativity. The game encourages you to experiment, whether it's through unique skill combinations, summoning fantastical creatures, or exploiting enemy weaknesses. Every battle feels like a puzzle, and figuring out the best approach is half the fun. Visually, this game is stunning. The art style has that distinct Atlas flair, bold, colorful, and full of personality. The character designs in particular are striking, and the environments are like nothing else out there. The music, composed by the same team behind Persona, is a mix of epic orchestral tracks and modern beats, perfectly setting the tone for both quiet moments and intense battles. What makes Metaphor ReFantazio so hard to put down is how seamlessly it blends exploration, story, and combat. You're always discovering something new, whether it's a hidden area, a plot twist, or a clever gameplay mechanic. It's the kind of game that constantly rewards your curiosity. If there's a potential stumbling block, it might be that the game's complexity could feel overwhelming at first. There's a lot to learn, and it doesn't always explain everything up front. But once you get into the rhythm, it's incredibly rewarding. Metaphor ReFantazio is a bold, imaginative take on the fantasy RPG. It's stylish, emotional, and packed with enough depth to keep you hooked for hours. If you're a fan of games that push the boundaries of their genre, this is one you absolutely shouldn't miss.
I will not let you die in vain.
Astro Bot. This is one of my favorite games from 2024, one of the few newer games released that are literally pure joy, fun, and happiness. This will literally put a smile on your face. So anyways, first off, let's talk about how Astro Bot makes the most of the PS5's hardware. The game uses the DualSense controller in ways that are so clever, it's almost unfair to other platformers. You'll feel the tiniest vibrations as Astro steps on different surfaces, the pull of his grappling hook through adaptive triggers, and even the rush of wind when you're free falling. It's that next level immersion that only Astro can deliver. The gameplay is where Astro Bot shines brightest. It's a perfect mix of tight platforming, clever puzzles, and action. The variety here is insane. You'll be bouncing across planets with low gravity, dodging hazards in volcanic caverns, and piloting Astro in some truly wild set pieces. Every level feels fresh, and the pacing keeps you hooked, always wondering what's next. Visually, this game is a stunner. The art direction is pure PlayStation magic, colorful, polished, and full of personality. Each planet feels like its own little world, with unique themes and mechanics that make exploring a joy. It's playful, vibrant, and brimming with detail that shows how much love went into every corner of this game. One of the coolest parts? The Easter eggs. Astro Bot celebrates PlayStation's history, so you'll spot nods to legendary franchises like Uncharted, God of War, and The Last of Us. These aren't just throwaway references, they're woven into the game in ways that feel thoughtful and fun for fans. It's no surprise Astro Bot has been racking up awards, including Game of the Year in 2024. It's the kind of game that reminds you why you love gaming. Pure, colorful fun that's accessible for everyone, whether you're a hardcore gamer or just looking for something to brighten your day. In short, Astro Bot 2024 isn't just a platformer, it's a celebration of everything PlayStation has been building for 30 years. It's addictive, joyful, and an absolute must-play for anyone lucky enough to own a PS5. This little robot might just be PlayStation's best mascot yet. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I am a huge Uncharted and Tomb Raider fan, so this game easily became one of my favorites as soon as I started playing it. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle brings the iconic archaeologist back in an epic adventure that nails everything you'd expect from the franchise. Developed by Machini Games, this first-person action title is more than just a nostalgia trip. It's a thrilling, well-crafted journey that feels true to the spirit of Indiana Jones while offering something fresh for gamers. Set between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, the story follows Indy as he teams up with Gina Lombardi, a gutsy reporter, to stop Nazi villain Emmerich Voss from harnessing occult powers for Hitler. The narrative is filled with classic Indy charm, sharp wit, globe-trotting locations, and moments of pure cinematic spectacle. If you've ever wanted to step into Indy's boots, this is the game to play. The gameplay strikes a great balance between exploration, puzzles, and stealth. Combat isn't the primary focus here, which feels authentic to the character. Instead, you'll be sneaking through enemy camps, solving intricate puzzles in ancient ruins, and using Indy's signature whip to swing across gaps or disarm foes. It's a slower-paced, thoughtful approach that emphasizes brains over brawn, and it works beautifully.
Look out below.
The environments are stunning, from the sun-soaked streets of Cairo to the intricate halls of Vatican City. Every location is packed with detail, making exploration feel rewarding. The game's sandbox-like areas encourage you to think creatively, whether it's using a disguise to slip past guards or discovering hidden paths to bypass enemies entirely. Troy Baker's performance as Indiana Jones is a standout. He captures Indy's sarcastic humor and rugged charm without trying to mimic Harrison Ford, giving the character a fresh yet familiar feel. The whip mechanics are another highlight, adding a unique layer to both exploration and combat that keeps things interesting. That said, the Great Circle isn't without its flaws. Some of the combat sequences can feel a bit unbalanced, especially when you're outnumbered. While the focus on stealth is a nice touch, a few sections could have benefited from smoother pacing or more fluid transitions between exploration and action. Additionally, the game required a beefy PC to be played. If you have anything below an RTX GPU, forget about it, but despite these hiccups, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a triumph. It's a love letter to the franchise, packed with thrilling moments, clever puzzles, and that sense of wonder that's so core to Indy's character. Whether you're a longtime fan or new to the series, this is an adventure worth taking. It's the kind of game that leaves you grinning, whip in hand, and ready for more.
Why'd you have to do that?
Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. with the recent remaster Horizon Zero Dawn is an amazing game. Now, even though it wasn't very much needed, but well, it's good enough. Anyways, let's talk about the game. So, Horizon Zero Dawn is one of those games that sticks with you long after you've finished it. It's not just the incredible open world or the intense combat, it's the way everything comes together to create an experience that feels fresh and unique, even in a genre full of heavy hitters. You play as Aloy, an outcast from birth who sets out to uncover the secrets of her past while exploring a world ruled by massive robotic creatures. The setting is jaw-dropping, a post-apocalyptic future where humanity has reverted to tribal societies and towering machines roam the land. It's a mix of ancient and futuristic that somehow feels completely believable. The combat is where Horizon really shines. You're not just running and guns blazing, you've got to think strategically using traps, elemental arrows, and Aloy's spear to take down these mechanical beasts. Every encounter feels like a puzzle. Do you aim for their weak points, hack them to fight on your side, or set up a trap and wait? It's up to you, and it never stops being satisfying. The world itself is stunning. From snowy mountains to dense jungles and sprawling deserts, every area feels alive. The machines are beautifully designed and each one has its own behavior and weaknesses, which makes exploring feel like a constant adventure. Add in the dynamic day-night cycle and weather effects, and you've got a world you'll want to get lost in. The story is another highlight. It starts small. Aloy just wants to know where she came from, but it grows into this epic tale of survival, mystery, and the clash between humans and machines. The way the game unravels its lore is masterful, dropping breadcrumbs through logs, recordings, and conversations that slowly reveal the history of the world. If there's one thing that could trip you up, it's the pacing. The main story is fantastic, but some side quests can feel like filler. That said, the game offers so much variety in its activities, hunting machines, exploring ruins, or just taking in the sights that it's easy to overlook the occasional lull. Horizon Zero Dawn isn't just another open world game, it's a standout. With its unique setting, incredible combat, and a story that keeps you hooked, it's a must-play for anyone who loves action RPGs. Aloy's journey is one you won't forget. Like a dragon, infinite wealth. So this time, the story picks up right where Like a Dragon Yakuza 7 left off. Our boy Ichiban Kasuga is back, and now the action takes him to Hawaii. Yep, you heard that right. It's a big change from the gritty streets of Kamurocho, but honestly, it's a fantastic move. Honolulu is vibrant, colorful, and packed with life. You've got bustling city streets, serene beaches, and all kinds of quirky characters to meet along the way. The combat sticks with the turn-based system introduced in Yakuza 7, and it feels even better this time around. It's faster, smoother, and just as over the top as you'd expect. You're still pulling off wild team attacks and summoning ridiculous powers, but now it feels like the pacing has been dialed in perfectly. It's strategic but never slows down the fun. Of course, the game wouldn't be Like a Dragon without the ridiculous side content, and Infinite Wealth doesn't disappoint. You've got everything from karaoke to beach volleyball diving missions and some truly bizarre side quests. 1 minute you're helping a stranger solve a heartfelt problem, and the next you're fighting off thugs dressed as giant animals. It's that perfect balance of sincerity and complete madness that makes this series so special. Visually, the game is a step up too. Hawaii looks gorgeous with its sunlit streets, crystal clear waters, and lush greenery. The character models are more detailed than ever, and the cutscenes feel like you're watching a high-budget drama. The shift to a new location breathes fresh air into the series while still keeping everything that makes Like a Dragon feel like home. If there's any downside, it's that some fans of the older brawler-style combat might still miss the Fist's first approach of the earlier games, but honestly, the turn-based combat has come so far that it feels like it belongs here now. At the end of the day, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is everything you could want from this series. It's hilarious, emotional, and packed with stuff to do. Whether you're a longtime fan or jumping in for the first time, this game is an absolute blast. Ichiban's journey just keeps getting better, and you won't want to miss this one. Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI takes the series in a bold new direction. It's darker, faster, and way more action-packed than anything we've seen from the franchise before. It feels like a big, ambitious reset while still staying true to the heart of what makes Final Fantasy so iconic: epic battles, memorable characters, and a story you can't stop thinking about. You play as Clive Rossfield, a guy with a pretty rough past who's caught in the middle of a world crumbling under its own weight. Magic in this world isn't just a tool, it's a dangerous resource tied to massive, godlike creatures called icons. The story is loaded with political drama, personal revenge, and plenty of shocking twists. Think Game of Thrones meets Final Fantasy Warring Kingdoms, betrayals, and some seriously heavy moments. The combat feels like a total game changer. Forget the turn-based days, this is pure, real-time action, and it's fast. Clive's moves feel smooth and satisfying with combos that let you mix melee attacks, magic, and special abilities. The icon battles are on another level. You'll face off against these massive mythical creatures in fights that are part boss battle, part cinematic spectacle. It's flashy, it's chaotic, and it's a blast. The world of Velistia looks incredible. Each region has its own unique vibe, from lush forests to desolate wastelands. It's not open world, but the zones are big enough to explore and packed with details that make them feel alive. And the lighting and textures, stunning. It's one of those games where you'll just stop and admire the view every now and then. And the music, wow. Masayoshi Soken's score is a perfect fit. The epic orchestral pieces hit hard during battles, while softer tracks bring a lot of emotion to the quieter moments. It's the kind of soundtrack that sticks with you long after you finish the game. The pacing feels tighter than in some previous Final Fantasy games, mostly because it's not trying to be an open-world RPG, it's more focused, and that makes the story hit harder. That said, some fans might miss the old-school party system or the deeper RPG mechanics, but honestly, the streamlined approach works really well for what this game is trying to do. What makes Final Fantasy XVI so good is how it keeps you hooked. The story is intense, the combat is addictive, and the world feels like it's constantly pulling you deeper in. It's not afraid to take risks, and while it might not be for everyone, it's one of the freshest takes on the series we've seen in years. Whether you're a die-hard Final Fantasy fan or just curious about the hype, this is a game you've got to try. Clive's journey is powerful, and Velistia is a place you won't want to leave. It's a thrilling ride from start to finish. Silent Hill 2 Remake. If you've played the original, you already know what kind of mind-bending nightmare you're stepping into. If you haven't, well, get ready for a game that doesn't just scare you, it gets under your skin and messes with your head in all the best and worst ways. You're back as James Sunderland, a guy who gets a letter from his dead wife asking him to come to Silent Hill. Yeah, dead wife, let that sink in. From the moment you set foot in the foggy town, you can tell something's very wrong. It's eerie, it's unsettling. And the deeper you go, the more you realize this isn't just a spooky town, it's a deep dive into James's personal demons. The first thing you'll notice is how ridiculously good the game looks. The fog isn't just a blurry wall anymore, it's thick, moody, and alive, swallowing the town and hiding horrors you're not ready to face. The lighting is insane, with flickering shadows and dim, creepy glows that make every corner feel dangerous. Silent Hill has always been about atmosphere, and this remake nails it. Combat is way better than the original. It's still not the focus of the game, you're not playing Silent Hill 2 to feel like an action hero, but the updated controls make encounters with Pyramid Head and all the other grotesque nightmares feel smoother and way less clunky. You're not here to win fights, you're here to survive them, and the combat tweaks make that tension hit just right. What really seals the deal though is the sound design. The unsettling music by Akira Yamaoka is still here, and it's just as spine-chilling as ever. The random creaks, whispers, and distant screams. They'll keep you looking over your shoulder, even when you know it's just a game. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Does it do anything new? Not really. This remake sticks close to the original almost to a fault. It doesn't reinvent Silent Hill, but honestly, it doesn't need to. The original story and vibe were already masterpieces, and this remake gives them the polish they deserve. If you're looking for pure psychological horror, this is it. It's not about jump scares or cheap tricks. Silent Hill 2 gets in your head and makes you think about things you'd rather not. It's creepy, it's emotional, and yeah, it'll probably leave you feeling a little off for a while. So, whether you're a longtime fan ready to revisit Silent Hill or someone curious about why this game is so legendary, the remake is absolutely worth playing. Just, don't play it late at night or alone. Trust me. Fallout 4. This is one of those games that can completely take over your life if you let it. It's massive, it's packed with stuff to do, and it's set in a post-apocalyptic world that somehow manages to be both bleak and full of charm. You start off in a surprisingly normal setting, your cozy little home in pre-apocalypse America until the bombs drop and you're thrust into the wasteland 200 years later. You're searching for your missing son, but let's be real, the main story is just one part of what makes Fallout 4 so addicting. The real magic happens when you start exploring. The world is absolutely massive. The Commonwealth, as it's called, is filled with crumbling buildings, eerie ruins, and all kinds of crazy characters. You'll stumble across factions like the Brotherhood of Steel, the Railroad, and the Minutemen, each with their own goals and philosophies. Whether you want to play as a hero, a villain, or just someone out for themselves, the game gives you the freedom to shape your story. The combat is a huge step up from previous Fallout games. It's faster, smoother, and just more fun overall. The VAT system, where you can slow down time and target specific body parts, is back, and it feels as satisfying as ever, especially when you land a critical shot that sends an enemy flying. But let's talk about the real-time sync settlement building. Fallout 4 lets you design and build your own settlements, from simple shacks to sprawling fortresses. It's one of those features you don't think you'll care about, and then suddenly you're spending hours decorating your post-apocalyptic dream home instead of saving your kid. The customization doesn't stop there. You can mod your weapons, armor, and even your power armor, turning yourself into a walking tank. The crafting system is deep but not so complicated that it feels overwhelming. The game isn't perfect though. The dialogue system is a bit stripped down compared to earlier games, and some fans felt like the main story didn't have the same weight as Fallout 3 or New Vegas. But honestly, the sheer amount of content here makes up for it. Whether you're hunting down Deathclaws, diving into creepy vaults, or just wandering and finding random encounters, there's always something to do. And the soundtrack? Perfect. The retro-futuristic vibe is nailed with classics like The Wanderer and Atom Bomb Baby playing on your Pip-Boy radio while you trek through the wasteland. At the end of the day, Fallout 4 is one of those games where you can easily sink hundreds of hours without even realizing it. It's got flaws, sure, but the freedom, exploration, and sheer variety make it an unforgettable experience. Whether you're a fan of the series or diving in for the first time, the wasteland is calling, and it's well worth answering. Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance isn't your typical medieval RPG. It throws out the magic, dragons, and fantasy tropes and instead focuses on delivering a gritty, realistic take on 15th century Bohemia. If you're looking for an immersive, historically grounded adventure where your decisions truly matter, this game has you covered. You play as Henry, the son of a blacksmith, whose peaceful life is shattered when his village is attacked by invading forces. Unlike most RPG protagonists, Henry isn't a warrior or a chosen one, he's just a regular guy trying to survive and find his place in a chaotic world. This grounded approach makes the story feel more personal and relatable. The world of Bohemia is absolutely stunning. The attention to detail is incredible, from the rolling hills and dense forests to the cobblestone streets of medieval towns. It feels alive, with NPCs going about their daily routines, and the level of realism pulls you in completely. Combat in Kingdom Come is one of its most unique features. It's not your typical hack and slash system, it's all about precision, timing, and strategy. Swordplay is complex and unforgiving with directional attacks, stamina management, and realistic weapon physics. It can feel tough to master, especially early on, but it's incredibly rewarding once you get the hang of it. Quests are another highlight. They're not just about killing enemies or fetching items, they're layered, often with multiple ways to complete them based on your skills, choices, or how you approach conversations. Diplomacy, stealth, and even your reputation all play a role, and it makes every decision feel meaningful. The game also leans heavily into survival mechanics. You'll need to eat, sleep, and manage your equipment. Weapons and armor degrade over time, and even something as simple as keeping your clothes clean can impact how people interact with you. It's a level of detail that some players will love but might feel overwhelming to others. If there's a downside, it's that Kingdom Come can be rough around the edges. The learning curve is steep, and the game doesn't hold your hand. Bugs and performance issues were also a problem at launch, though many have been patched since then. That said, Kingdom Come Deliverance is an incredibly ambitious game that stands out for its dedication to realism and historical accuracy. It's a slow burn, but if you're willing to put in the time, it offers one of the most immersive RPG experiences out there. Whether you're sneaking into a castle, learning the intricacies of sword fighting, or simply wandering the countryside, it's a game that rewards patience and curiosity. If you've ever wanted to experience what life might have been like in medieval Europe, warts and all, this is as close as it gets. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5 takes the series' signature stealth action gameplay and drops it into an open world that's as expansive as it is meticulously crafted. Whether you're a longtime fan of the franchise or diving in for the first time, this game delivers on so many levels it's hard to put down. You play as Big Boss, also known as Venom Snake, Waking up after a 9-year coma following the events of Ground Zeroes, your mission is rebuild your private army and take revenge on those who destroyed it. The story is classic Kojima, deep, mysterious, and full of twists that leave you questioning what's real and what's not. But where the Phantom Pain truly shines is in its gameplay. The open world structure is a game changer for the series, giving you complete freedom to approach missions however you want. Want to sneak in under cover of darkness, taking out enemies one by one? Go for it. Prefer storming in with guns blazing? That works too. The game gives you the tool silencers, rocket launchers, even cardboard boxes, and lets you figure out how to use them. The attention to detail is insane. Everything from how you manage your gear to how enemies adapt to your tactics over time feels thought out. Keep using headshots, they'll start wearing helmets. Attack only at night, they'll install more floodlights. It's these little touches that keep the gameplay fresh and make you feel like you're in a living, breathing world. Mother Base, your home base, is another addictive layer. Recruiting soldiers, managing resources, and building up your operations adds a strategic element to the game. Plus, you can visit the base and interact with your crew, making it feel like more than just a menu screen. Visually, the Phantom Pain is stunning. The environments, whether it's the rocky terrain of Afghanistan or the lush jungles of Africa, look incredible. The day-night cycle and dynamic weather not only add realism but also affect your approach to missions. Anyways, so the gameplay is so good that it more than makes up for any narrative shortcomings. The Phantom Pain is one of those games where you lose hours just experimenting with strategies, exploring the world, or messing around with the game's endless possibilities. Whether you're a fan of stealth games, open world adventures, or just brilliantly designed systems, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is a masterpiece. It's ambitious, fun, and endlessly replayable. Kojima's vision may have been cut short, but what's here is nothing short of remarkable. SIFU. SIFU is a game that doesn't just test your skills, it demands mastery. It's a punishing yet incredibly rewarding martial arts action game that makes you feel like a kung fu movie star, but only if you're willing to put in the work to get there. You play as a young martial artist on a quest for revenge against a group of assassins who killed your family. The story is straightforward, but it's told with enough style and emotional weight to keep you hooked. Plus, the environments and boss fights bring a ton of personality, making each encounter feel meaningful. What sets SIFU apart is its combat system. It's brutal, precise, and all about timing. You'll block, dodge, parry, and strike with a flow that feels incredibly satisfying when you get it right. Every punch, kick, and counter lands with weight, and the game encourages you to stay calm and calculated. Button mashing won't save you here. The big twist is the aging mechanic. Every time you die, you get older, which makes you stronger but less resilient. It's a genius system that adds tension to every fight. You'll start a run thinking, I can take a few hits, but by the time you hit your 50s, every mistake feels like a huge deal. And the stakes keep rising, and the aging mechanic forces you to constantly improve or face starting over. Visually, SIFU is stunning. The art style is bold and minimalist with vibrant colors and dynamic lighting that make every level pop. Each area feels distinct, from neon-lit nightclubs to serene temples, and the game's use of cinematic camera angles during fights makes every moment feel like it's straight out of a martial arts film. The soundtrack is another highlight, mixing traditional Chinese instruments with modern beats to create a vibe that's both intense and atmospheric. It's the perfect backdrop for the relentless action. Now, it's worth noting SIFU is not an easy game. It's designed to challenge you, and the difficulty can feel overwhelming at times, especially in the early hours when you're still figuring out the combat. But the game's loop of learning, improving, and trying again is what makes it so addictive. If there's a downside, it's that the steep difficulty might not be for everyone. It's the kind of game that rewards patience and practice, but if you're not into that, it could feel more frustrating than fun. SIFU isn't just a game, it's a test of skill and perseverance. It's stylish, intense, and deeply satisfying once you get the hang of it. If you've ever wanted to feel like a martial arts master and don't mind a challenge, this is the game for you. Just be ready to take a few hits along the way, both in the game and to your pride. Vanquish. This game is pure adrenaline from start to finish. Imagine a third-person shooter where the action never lets up and everything you do feels like it belongs in a blockbuster sci-fi movie. That's Vanquish. It's fast, flashy, and doesn't waste a second trying to impress you. You play as Sam Gideon, a DARPA agent rocking the augmented reaction suit Rs, which basically turns you into a high-speed, butt-sliding, slow-mo badass. The plot: evil Russians have hijacked a space station to threaten the US, and you're sent in to stop them. It's straightforward, but honestly, it works because the real star here is the gameplay. And oh man, the gameplay. Vanquish isn't just a shooter, it's a sprint. You're constantly sliding into cover, boosting across the battlefield, or diving into slow motion to pull off ridiculous moves. The boost mechanic is genius. You can zip around the map at crazy speeds, closing gaps or flanking enemies before they even know what hit them. Pair that with a bullet time system that kicks in when you're near death or aiming mid-slide, and every fight feels like an action scene you choreographed yourself. The weapons are another highlight. You've got everything from standard rifles to grenade launchers and futuristic tech like the disc launcher. But it's not just about variety, it's about how you use them. You're encouraged to experiment and switch things up mid-fight because staying in one place or relying on the same tactic will get you killed. The environments are classic futuristic sci-fi sleek metallic structures, towering cityscapes, and battlefields full of chaos. It's not a huge variety, but the game keeps the pacing tight by throwing new challenges and enemies your way. Speaking of enemies, the robotic designs are cool as hell, massive mechs, spider-like machines, and everything in between. One thing to keep in mind is that this isn't a long game. You're looking at about 6 to 8 hours, depending on how much you die, and you will die. But it's one of those games that's all about replaying levels, improving your skills, and trying out harder difficulties. It's short, but man, it's satisfying. If I had to nitpick, the story's pretty forgettable, and the characters aren't winning any awards for depth. Sam is basically your typical wisecracking action hero, but honestly, that's part of the charm. This game isn't trying to be deep or emotional, it knows exactly what it is and runs with it. Vanquish is one of those games that just gets it. It's fast, intense, and unapologetically fun. If you're into shooters, love high energy action, or just want a game that lets you feel cool as hell, give this one a shot. You won't regret it. Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors is one of those games that sneaks up on you. You think, oh, this looks simple. I'll try it for a bit, and then suddenly you've lost hours, completely hooked. It's deceptively basic on the surface, but underneath, it's one of the most addictive games out there. Here's the deal: you control a lone character trying to survive waves of increasingly difficult enemies. The catch? Your attacks are automatic, all you have to do is move. That simplicity is the genius of Vampire Survivors. It's easy to pick up, but as you progress, it becomes this chaotic, fast-paced dance of dodging enemies, upgrading abilities, and trying to last just a few seconds longer. The real magic comes from the upgrades. As you defeat enemies, they drop experience gems. Collect enough and you can choose between new weapons or upgrades to your existing ones. Eventually, you'll end up with an arsenal of attacks, whips, magic wands, spinning axes, holy water that fill the screen with pure chaos. Watching your tiny character go from barely surviving to absolutely obliterating swarms of enemies is ridiculously satisfying. Each run lasts up to 30 minutes if you survive that long, and the game keeps the stakes rising by throwing more enemies at you every second. The difficulty curve feels perfect, you're constantly on edge, but the upgrades make you feel powerful enough to handle it until you don't. It's that just one more run feeling that makes Vampire Survivors so hard to put down. The graphics are super retro with pixel art straight out of the 90s. It's not fancy, but it fits the vibe perfectly. The sound effects and music add to the chaotic energy with upbeat, almost hypnotic tracks that keep your adrenaline going as you dodge hordes of enemies. There's also a surprising amount of depth here. Between runs, you can unlock new characters, weapons, and abilities. Each character has unique starting weapons and stats, which adds variety and encourages you to try out different playstyles. There are even hidden secrets and synergies between items that keep you experimenting. It's simple on the surface, but the more you play, the more you realize how much there is to dig into. As for some criticism, it's that the simplicity might not appeal to everyone. The gameplay loop is repetitive by design, it's all about mastering the same mechanics over and over, but for players who love that satisfying grind and constant sense of progression, this game hits the sweet spot. Vampire Survivors is proof that you don't need flashy graphics or a massive budget to make an incredible game. It's fun, addictive, and endlessly replayable. Whether you've got 5 minutes or an entire afternoon, this is the perfect game to lose yourself in. Just be ready to say, okay, one more run about 100 times. Batman Arkham Knight. Batman Arkham Knight is the grand finale of the Arkham trilogy, and it's nothing short of epic. Rocksteady pulled out all the stops to deliver a massive, visually stunning, and emotionally charged conclusion to their take on the Dark Knight. This is a game that doesn't just let you play as Batman, it dives deep into what it means to be him, flaws and all. The story picks up with Gotham under siege once again, this time by Scarecrow, who's released a fear toxin that empties the city, leaving it a playground for villains. Scarecrow isn't alone though. The mysterious Arkham Knight, a heavily armed, militaristic adversary with a serious grudge against Batman, joins the fray, and his presence adds an intense, personal layer to the narrative. What sets Arkham Knight apart is its focus on Batman's psyche. The game dives deep into Bruce Wayne's mind, particularly his complicated relationship with Joker, who lingers as a haunting, psychological presence. Mark Hamill's Joker steals every scene he's in, even as a figment of Batman's imagination. It's a bold and brilliant way to explore Batman's guilt, fears, and moral limits. Gotham is bigger and more detailed than ever before, with a sprawling cityscape that's a joy to explore. Gliding through the streets, grappling to rooftops, and swooping down on unsuspecting criminals feels as good as it did in Arkham City, but now it's enhanced by the addition of the Batmobile. The Batmobile, though, is where opinions get split. On one hand, it's a blast to use in high-speed chases and puzzle-solving sequences, giving you a new way to interact with Gotham. On the other hand, the tank combat sections can feel a bit overdone. They're cool at first, but start to drag when they keep popping up as major parts of the story. The combat and stealth mechanics are as polished as ever, with new gadgets and moves that keep things fresh. The enemy AI is smarter too, forcing you to think more creatively when taking them down. Predator encounters where you stalk and incapacitate armed thugs are some of the best in the series, especially with added multi-takedown options. Visually, Arkham Knight is breathtaking. The rain-soaked streets of Gotham, the neon lights, and the incredible detail on Batman's suit and gadgets, all of it looks amazing, even years after release. The dynamic weather and lighting add a lot to the atmosphere, making Gotham feel alive despite being a city in chaos. Ultimately, Batman Arkham Knight is a fitting end to Rocksteady's trilogy. It's ambitious, emotional, and packed with memorable moments. While the Batmobile might not be everyone's favorite addition, the game as a whole delivers an experience worthy of the Dark Knight. If you've ever dreamed of donning the cape and cowl, this is the closest you'll get. Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb is one of the weirdest, most delightful games you'll ever play. It's like someone tossed a cute animal simulator into a blender with a dark cult management sim and a fast-paced roguelike. The result: pure, chaotic fun. You play as a little lamb who's resurrected by a mysterious godlike entity called the One Who Waits in return. You're tasked with building a loyal cult and spreading their influence far and wide. But don't let the adorable art style fool you. This game has a dark side, and it's all about balancing charm and creepiness in the best way possible. The gameplay is split into two main parts. First, there's the cult management side. Here, you're running your little commune of followers. You'll build shelters, grow crops, and keep your cultists happy or scared enough not to question you. The tricky part? You also have to keep them from starving, dissenting, or dying from exhaustion, and yes, you might need to perform a ritual sacrifice or two to keep things running smoothly. Then there's the roguelike action. You'll head out into procedurally generated dungeons to fight enemies, gather resources, and defeat rival cult leaders. The combat is fast and fluid, with simple but satisfying attacks and dodges. Each run gives you new weapons and abilities, so it never feels repetitive. Plus, the bosses are a highlight, massive, grotesque creatures that challenge your skills and give you a real sense of accomplishment when you take them down. What makes Cult of the Lamb so addictive is how seamlessly it blends these two elements. You'll go from chaotic dungeon runs to peaceful base building, and both feel equally rewarding. It's the kind of game where you'll say just one more run, and then spend another hour decorating your cult's temple or deciding which doctrine to enforce. The art style is a huge part of the game's charm. The mix of cute, cartoonish animals and dark, demonic rituals is bizarrely perfect. One moment you're watching your followers worship you with wide-eyed devotion, the next, you're sacrificing one of them to appease an angry deity. It's weird, it's hilarious, and it works. The soundtrack is another standout. It's catchy and atmospheric, perfectly matching the game's mix of lighthearted and sinister tones. Whether you're battling through dungeons or watching your cultists dance around a bonfire, the music keeps you hooked. Cult of the Lamb is a game that shouldn't work as well as it does, but it absolutely nails its weird, unique premise. It's equal parts adorable and disturbing, with gameplay that's both engaging and rewarding. If you're into roguelikes, management sims, or just love games that do something different, this one is an absolute must-play. Start your cult, just try not to get too attached to your followers. They probably won't make it. Devil May Cry 5. Devil May Cry 5 is an absolute blasted game that grabs you right from the start and doesn't let go. It's all about stylish, over-the-top action that makes you feel like a complete badass while still throwing plenty of challenges your way. If you love fast combat and big, ridiculous set pieces, this game is the jackpot. The story picks up a few years after DMC 4. There's a creepy demonic tree taking over Redgrave City, and it's up to our favorite demon hunters to clean up the mess. Nero's back, and this time he's got a fancy mechanical arm thanks to a mysterious someone stealing his actual arm. Dante's here too, still rocking his too cool to care vibe, and then there's V, a new character who's all poetry and shadows. The plot itself? It's classic Devil May Cry, chaotic, dramatic, and full of twists. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it hits those emotional beats when it needs to. The combat, though, that's where this game really shines. It's smooth, fast, and so much fun to play. Each character brings something completely different to the table. Nero's got his Devil Breakers, these mechanical arms that let him do all kinds of crazy things, yank enemies toward him, blast them with explosions, or even slow down time. Dante, as always, is a jack of all trades. He's got an insane arsenal, from swords to nunchucks to a literal motorcycle you can split in half to use as weapons, yes, really. And then there's V, who fights by summoning creatures to do his dirty work. His playstyle feels slower and more strategic, but it's a cool change of pace. What makes it so addictive is how much the game encourages you to be stylish. It's not just about winning fights, it's about how you do it. You're constantly chaining combos, dodging at the last second, and switching up weapons to keep things fresh. Pulling off a perfect run where the announcer yells smoke and sexy style is just chef's kiss. You'll find yourself replaying levels just to see how much cooler you can get. Visually, the game is stunning. The re-engine does an incredible job, whether you're admiring the detailed character designs or the disgusting yet beautiful demonic landscapes. The lighting, the particle effects, the sheer level of polish, it's all top-notch. And the cutscenes, they're peak DMC insanity, full of slow motion action and ridiculous stunts that make you laugh and cheer at the same time. And let's not forget the soundtrack. It's loud, intense, and so fitting for the action on screen. Nero's theme, Devil Trigger, is an absolute banger. You'll be humming it for days after you're done playing. This is the kind of game that reminds you why action games can be so much fun. It's flashy, satisfying, and doesn't waste time messing around. Whether you're here to pull off insane combos or just revy a sword in midair because it looks cool, Devil May Cry 5 is an experience you don't want to miss. Get ready to let that devil trigger rip. Nioh. Nioh is what happens when you mix the precise, punishing combat of Dark Souls with the fast-paced action of a samurai movie, and it's as intense and rewarding as it sounds. Developed by Team Ninja, this action RPG takes you to war-torn 1600s Japan, where demons and warlords alike stand between you and your mission. You play as William, a Western sailor chasing a mysterious foe who's stolen something precious from him. He ends up in Japan, where he gets caught in a supernatural conflict filled with yokai Japanese demons, spirits, and legendary samurai. The story is loosely tied to historical events with some wild creative liberties, but honestly, it's the gameplay that steals the show here. The combat in Nioh is fast, technical, and incredibly satisfying. It's all about timing, positioning, and knowing when to go on the offensive or play it safe. You've got a variety of weapons to choose from: katanas, spears, axes, dual swords, and each one has its own unique playstyle. On top of that, there are stances high for powerful attacks, low for speed and dodging, and mid for balanced options. Mastering these stances and switching between them mid-fight adds a layer of depth that keeps every encounter engaging. And the enemies, they're brutal. Yokai will test your patience and reflexes, with each one requiring a different approach. Boss fights in particular are some of the most memorable in the game. They're tough but fair, and taking down a massive demon after dozens of failed attempts is a feeling like no other. Nioh also has a loot system that feels more Diablo than Souls. Enemies drop weapons, armor, and gear constantly, and you'll spend a lot of time sorting through stats and bonuses to optimize your build. It can get overwhelming, especially early on, but if you love customizing your playstyle, it's incredibly rewarding. Visually, the game does a great job of bringing feudal Japan to life. The environments are dark, moody, and packed with detail from dense forests to haunted temples and fiery battlefields. The yokai designs are also fantastic, creepy, grotesque, and uniquely Japanese. If there's one downside, it's that the game can feel a bit repetitive. Many of the levels reuse similar layouts and themes, and while the combat stays fresh, the environments might start to blend together after a while. The difficulty, too, might scare some players off. It's a tough game, and it doesn't hold your hand. That said, Nioh rewards persistence. It's challenging, sure, but every victory feels earned. The progression system with its skill trees and unlockable abilities keeps you hooked, and the sheer variety of weapons and playstyles means there's always something new to try. Nioh is a love letter to samurai and Japanese mythology, wrapped up in some of the most satisfying action combat out there. If you're into games that test your skill and keep you coming back for more, this one's for you. Just be ready to die a lot, and when you finally beat that boss that's been wrecking you for hours, totally worth it. God of War Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok is nothing short of epic. It takes everything that made the 2018 reboot so incredible, tight combat, an emotional story, and jaw-dropping visuals, and cranks it all up to deliver a sequel that feels like both a natural evolution and a perfect conclusion to Kratos and Atreus' Norse saga. The story picks up a few years after the events of the last game. Fimbulwinter is in full swing, and the looming threat of Ragnarok, the end of the world, has Kratos and Atreus caught in the middle of gods, giants, and prophecies. Atreus is older now, wrestling with his identity as Loki, while Kratos is still trying to be the dad he never had. Their dynamic is the heart of the game, and it's layered with tension, growth, and genuine warmth. Watching their relationship evolve is just as engaging as battling massive monsters. Speaking of battles, the combat is better than ever. The Leviathan axe and Blades of Chaos are back, and they feel as satisfying as ever to use. The game adds more depth to your arsenal with new moves, abilities, and shields tailored to different playstyles. You'll switch between weapons mid-fight, chaining together combos and special attacks while managing your positioning. It's fast, brutal, and incredibly rewarding. Enemy variety has been kicked up a notch, with plenty of new foes to keep you on your toes. From hulking trolls to cunning Einarjar warriors, every encounter feels fresh and challenging. The boss fights, in particular, are some of the best in the series, massive, cinematic, and packed with mechanics that test your skills. The world of Ragnarok is stunning. You'll visit all 9 realms this time, and each one is uniquely designed and overflowing with detail. From the icy peaks of Midgard to the fiery depths of Muspelheim, the environments are gorgeous and brimming with life. Exploration feels rewarding, with hidden lore, puzzles, and side quests that add depth to the world and characters. One of the standout aspects of the game is its cast. Thor and Odin, teased in the first game, take center stage here, and they're portrayed in ways that feel fresh and compelling. Thor is more than just a brutish hammer wielder, he's a complex, flawed character with his own struggles. Odin, on the other hand, is manipulative and cunning, a fascinating take on the All-Father. If there's any downside, it's that Ragnarok sticks closely to the formula of its predecessor. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it refines everything to near perfection. Some might find the pacing a bit slow in the middle, especially with side content, but it's hard to fault a game for giving you so much to do. God of War Ragnarok is everything a sequel should be. It's bigger, more ambitious, and emotionally richer than its predecessor, while still delivering the intense, visceral gameplay the series is known for. It's a fitting end to Kratos' Norse journey and a reminder of why this franchise is one of the best in gaming. Whether you're here for the epic fights or the deeply personal story, Ragnarok is a masterpiece. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a fantastic follow-up to Jedi Fallen Order, building on everything that made the first game great while adding enough new ideas to make it feel fresh. If you're a fan of Star Wars or just love a good action-adventure game, this one delivers on all fronts. The story picks up 5 years after Fallen Order. Cal Kestis is now a more seasoned Jedi, still fighting against the Empire but grappling with the weight of his mission and the sacrifices it demands. The stakes are higher, the cast is richer, and the narrative dives deeper into themes of hope, survival, and the blurred lines between light and dark. It's got that perfect Star Wars balance, epic and emotional without feeling overbearing. Now, let's get to the gameplay, because honestly, that's where this game shines. Combat is even more fun this time around. You've got new stances, which basically let you decide how you want to fight. Dual-wielding lightsabers feels fast and aggressive, while the heavy stance makes you feel like an unstoppable tank. Mixing these with your force abilities, pulling enemies toward you, slowing them down, or just tossing them off cliffs never stops being satisfying. Every fight feels like a mini Star Wars moment. The planets you explore are next level. They're bigger, more detailed, and filled with so much to do. Koboh is a standout. It's huge and feels alive with its bustling outposts, wildlife, and hidden areas. It's not just a place to run through, it's a world to get lost in. And the Metroidvania style progression is back, so you'll come across places you can't access at first, only to circle back later when you've unlocked a new ability. It keeps exploration feeling fresh the whole way through. Traversal has been seriously upgraded too. You're not just running and wall climbing, you've got a grappling hook now, and you can ride mounts to get around faster. It all feels so smooth, and the platforming sections strike a great balance between fun and challenging. And then there's the customization. This time around you can deck out Cal with different outfits, hairstyles, and lightsaber designs. It's a small touch, but it makes you feel more connected to him as you shape his look to fit your vibe. That said, it's not perfect. At launch there were some performance issues, especially on PC with frame rate drops and glitches. Most of that has been patched now, but it's worth knowing if you're playing on older hardware. But anyways, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is exactly what you'd want from a sequel. It's more of everything, more action, more story, more exploration, and it never loses the magic that makes Star Wars so special. Whether you're swinging a lightsaber or just soaking in the lore, this game delivers. If you haven't played it yet, trust me, it's worth the trip to a galaxy far, far away.